for a number of years now, we've used statistics that place that percentage in the low 70s, so maybe 70 to 74% of us are unemployed or underemployed. Not because we want to be, but because the opportunities for us are fewer than they might be for members of the sighted public. Consider, for example, those of us who have earned advanced degrees. I was talking recently with my legal assistant at the office about employability, and I made the observation that just across the street from our office there is a McDonald's and a Krispy Kreme donut shop. And at those businesses, there might be, from time to time, help wanted signs. And if those signs are posted, if you compare my credentials to those of my legal assistant, while she is very bright, she has a high school education and some training beyond high school, but no bachelor's degree. I was educated at the doctoral level, having earned a law degree from the University of South Carolina School of Law. But if she and I were to walk into the Krispy Kreme and apply for a job, who would have the advantage? She would. Because I would have to convince the powers that be in the Krispy Kreme empire that I could do the job. Likewise, just down the road at the McDonald's, where they work the cash register and the grill, the machines now make their own change. The pictures on the cash register make it so that you don't have to be a professional reader.
Well,
you just punch in the pictures and it enters the amount that is charged, and you get the payment from the customer, and it issues the right change. It's very easy. But for a blind person, it would be difficult for us to convince them to give us a job. Yet, it is easier for us to get a job than it was in 1940. And I've done some thinking about what we can do as blind people. And as we get together at conventions like this, we discuss strategies for helping us to have the opportunity to live the life we want. And there seems to be a common theme that prevails among all of us who are blind and suffering from a lack of opportunity, not suffering from a lack of visual acuity, but a lack of opportunity. And that common theme is this: most people equate sight with competence. Most people equate sight with competence. They believe that those two concepts are synonymous. One is just like the other, people believe. I'll give you an example or two. When I was preparing to board a flight at an airport one day, I was talking with someone and they asked me if I wanted them to arrange a cart for me at the city where I'd be changing planes. My mother suffered from polio, and she is not able to walk very far at all. While she can move her legs, she needs to be in a wheelchair to walk more than 3 or 4 feet. And it would benefit her to have a cart. And I'm glad that they have that service. But for me, I happen to walk on the treadmill a couple miles a day. And my legs work just fine. My problem is reading the signs that point to where the concourses are located, or the gate numbers, or the restaurants. So when I get off the plane, I need certain information. But that's about the extent of it. It doesn't matter how far it is to go. My legs get me there easier than most people's do. But to the person at the airport, I was an individual who might not have the discretion to know when to get on the plane or whether to be in the gate area as the plane was about to be boarded. They told me that they had a mother that had dementia, and it was fairly advanced, and she might, from time to time, walk off and miss the plane because she wouldn't be in the gate area when they began to board. And the person told me, oh, but she doesn't like to have help, but she needs it. They saw no distinction between someone like their mother and someone like me. Because you see, I didn't have dementia at that point. And there wasn't much of a chance that I would leave the gate area when they were announcing my flight. And it wasn't just that I refused help, but you see, they thought maybe even something more fundamental, which would have been something like this. Did I have the capacity to know whether I needed help or not? So think about that. Have you noticed, those of you who are blind, when you are walking down a concourse at the airport or in a mall, somebody will ask you if you need help. And I always appreciate it when people do ask, because many times I do need help. But if I say no thank you, people should accept that. And they don't. They say, are you sure? It's a long way. And they think that I have a problem with my discretion. Maybe I don't know that it would be better for me. On the other hand, people who are sighted have the privilege of deciding whether or not they want that help. They also have the privilege of deciding whether they want that cart. Do you want to get on a cart or not? But when you are blind, you see, they try to push you toward that choice. They try to push you toward the cart. I have been asked as many as 5 or 6 times walking down the concourse in Charlotte International Airport, Douglas International Airport in Charlotte. I'll pass one cart, and then 50 yards down the road, somebody else is asking me about it. And then inevitably, sometimes I know they're doing this. They'll have an airport person follow me. They'll stay 20 yards behind me. They don't want to tell me that they are there, but I have heard them. They told somebody one time, just follow it, but they just didn't know that I had heard them say that. Actually, if they would tell me they were there, I would love to grab their arm and zoom from concourse B to concourse E, which is probably, 1.5 miles or something. It would be a lot quicker. because I wouldn't have to ask directions all the time. It's not going to hurt me. I may not get there as smoothly if I am using my cane. I might run into a trash can, for example, and go around it. But the good thing about that is I know that there's a trash can there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
If I start to veer toward a gate and there are some chairs there along the concourse, I may kind of brush by some people sitting in those seats, but that's all right. I just go back out to the center of the concourse. If I never run into anything, then I can't tell where I am.
Right.
That's right.
So I need to know whether there is a table and some chairs. Sometimes I'm looking for those things.
That's right.
Sometimes people might not believe it, but right then at that very moment, I might want to run into that table. I might want to run into it, because then I can see how that table is connected to everything else.
Yes.
So it may not look as smooth. Sometimes if I've got a tight connection, it'd be fine with me to grab somebody's arm. But in Charlotte, if you're traveling all the way across the airport, you have to take 3 carts. Because there's an escalator for one, and the cart doesn't go up the escalator, so you've got to change there. And then there are carts that go down certain concourses. So I always say, well, no, I've done it before, and you've got to take 3 carts. I'd rather just walk. It's too much of a hassle. I even heard them the other day telling somebody they were waiting on a cart, and they said, I've got a tight connection. And the person said, well, you know what? It might be quicker if you can walk that far just to go, and they give them the directions to get to the concourse. They're admitting that it might be quicker. But for me, it's, oh, no, take the cart. Stay right here. Because they think that as blind people, we lack the capacity for judgment. Another example of that low estimation that people have regarding the competence of blind people occurred when I was attending a convention very much like this in another state. We were going through the line at lunch, and they were serving club sandwiches. I love club sandwiches. I'm definitely a pizza and burgers, club sandwich and subs kind of guy. And some Tex-Mex.
You just love food.
Yeah, I just love food, Elsie said. So last night I had the nachos here at the restaurant. Very tasty. But we were going through the line at the hotel, and there were some hotel staff who were lined up along the table, and you walk through, and I was with my son. Kim and Jordan came to the convention with me on that particular occasion. And my son at that time was 13 or so, and he had his plate of his chips and such, and they gave him a sandwich, and I got to the part of the line where they were going to give me my sandwich, and the guy said something like, okay, and I'll take the toothpick out, and he put the sandwich on my plate. That may seem very inconspicuous, but think about that very small, minor, unimportant detail. I didn't fuss at it. I didn't argue with it. I didn't fuss, because what good would it have done? Would that have made us more employable as blind people? If I had said, don't you take that toothpick out of my sandwich, you idiot! Keep that toothpick in there. I took the sandwich. So, the irony is, there I was, a blind guy, trying to carry my sandwich across the room with a cane in one hand and a plate in the other, and the club sandwich with nothing holding it together. They put toothpicks in those things for a reason, you know, because they're tall. Now, the gentleman meant well. He wanted something good to happen to me. He wanted to do something kind, and I appreciated him for the gesture. But what he was really saying was, you might get hurt with this toothpick. And so I thought about what might happen. And what would he think might happen if he had left the toothpick in the sandwich? Would I pick my hand up and put it down on the sandwich really hard and hold in my hand? Or if I missed the toothpick with my hand, would I Would I pick it up and bite down and puncture the roof of my mouth or something with a toothpick? Or even worse, did he think that I, being blind and lacking the capacity for judgment, might just pick it up and eat it anyway with the toothpick? I just didn't understand what the reasoning was. But I would know, like most blind people with a sense of touch, I reach my hand out, I pick the sandwich quarter up, and I feel this toothpick in there, and I pull the toothpick out and start eating it just like anybody else would. But the question was, did I have the capacity to know better? So, as blind people, what we need in our life experience is knowledge about things. Today, I was walking across the parking lot here at this hotel, and Glenn came along. He helped me out, and I said, every time I come out of this door where the lobby is,
Yes.
I want to know which door, is it 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, to get across to those rooms across the parking lot. Now, sometimes I've hit it. Sometimes I haven't. I've got to walk back from there to here.
Yep.
But for some reason, I am taking off in the wrong direction much of the time. So he said it's really more like 3 o'clock. So I come off that curb where the lobby doors are and sort of make a right, swing out a little bit, get to a manhole, and then I know I'm right there at those doors to go into that room. But you see, it's all about getting the information that you need so that you can do something with it with competence.
Yes.
All we need is the information. So when I get off of the plane, all I need someone to say is, if you walk straight down this concourse and make a right, you'll go through the food court, and then there'll be an escalator to your left. Go down that escalator and you'll be at Concourse E, which I've learned now from flying through Charlotte so many times. But we just need the information. So if the signs could talk, think about that. If you were walking down the mall, you're in the middle of the mall and you're walking and you have this very inconspicuous little quiet sign, maybe at the storefront. Kind of like, those things that you hear on moving sidewalks?
Yes.
This sidewalk is ending. Please watch your step. This sidewalk is ending. Please watch your step. And so, I'm coming to the end of the moving sidewalk incidentally, and people say, okay, you're coming to the end, 3, 2, and I'm like, well, I can hear the thing. They're telling us that it's ending. I've also got my cane out, and so I'm going to be able to step off just fine. But again, they mean well. But let's say we were walking down the mall, whatever you call it, corridor.
Yeah.
What if you heard this little sign that said Sears, or Belk, Bed Bath & Beyond, Bed Bath & Beyond, or whatever. I don't know, Victoria's Secret. I knew Mike would say that. So, think about if we could just get at that information. So the things that we're doing in the National Federation of the Blind, in terms of accessibility and information that's available on websites, and the KNFB reader, for example, as Mr. Gashel demonstrated that last summer, how you can now shoot that camera at a PowerPoint presentation that'll read it to you. Getting that information is what we're working on, and the reader is becoming better and better as time goes by. And there will come a time when blind people will be able to access print about as readily as sighted people can. There are already money identifiers that can do that. On my phone, I have an app, LookTel Money Reader. And I don't have to press any buttons. I just hold it in front of my phone, and it tells me whether it's a 1, 5, 10, or 20. Most of the time, I just have 1s and 5s. Kim takes all the 20s, 50s, and 100s. But it's not I don't have a problem knowing how much to spend and how much my change is supposed to be. It's more about being able to identify the bills that are there, and we have ways of doing that. We have alternative techniques that we use that enable us to live the life we want. And we're developing more techniques every day. There are blind people who cook out. I was talking earlier today about using a fireplace. But there are blind people who will fire up the grill and make some steaks. Work on cars. Get under the car and, work on the engine and stuff like that. And it's not about competence or lack thereof. It's just that blind people need the information. And at this day and age, with technology becoming so visual, we have to remind the manufacturers that technology has to have a non-visual interface. I once had a teacher who told me as a blind child, don't touch something if you don't know what it is. And sometimes, it might be bad if you get burned on a hot burner or something like that. But if you're a blind child, how are you going to know something? How are you going to know what something is if you don't reach out and touch it?
That's right.
Reach out and touch it.
We have got to teach blind children that it is okay to put their hands out and explore the world that they live in. It is okay to be blind.
Yes.
My parents thought that it was so terrible to be blind that in addition to teaching me to do things that they thought blind people didn't do, like doing the dishes and things that I've talked about some this afternoon, they wanted me to look sighted. So I was never encouraged to put my hands out and explore things. And that has been something that I've changed my thinking on through the years. It has been a lot better to just not be afraid to put my hands out and find out what's there. But the techniques that we use are not inferior techniques. They're alternative techniques to people who accomplish things using their vision. Let me give you an example of one technique that I would suggest is superior to the visual method. Okay, now, a lot of guys use a straight razor when they shave. Some use electric razors, but if you use a straight razor, I would suggest that it is not as efficient to stand at the sink and look at the mirror and apply the shaving cream, make a big mess around the sink and have to clean up, keep looking in the mirror and getting the water off the razor or getting the shaving cream and keep warming the blade up a little bit. It's a lot easier to be in the shower and shave because you've already got the water there. You're already in the shower, so you're not making a mess with the shaving cream. You just put it on your face and start shaving. That's an alternative technique, in my opinion, that is superior to the sighted method. Dr. Jernigan tells the story in the Colonel book entitled Toothpaste and Railroad Tracks, about an alternative technique that he used to brush his teeth. He would take the toothpaste and squirt it directly into his mouth. Then he would put the brush in and go at it. It was funny because he was talking with Mr. Jernigan about that one time. And he said, why mess with trying to get it on the brush? Just go ahead and squirt it right in your mouth. So she began doing that. Then sometime later, he asked her, maybe a few months down the road, "Hey, are you putting toothpaste on your toothbrush?" And she admitted, "Well, yeah, she was." So I guess old habits die hard. But that technique was more efficient. In eating dinner, if I have a steak, for example, I think it's more efficient using my method than the sighted method. The sighted method being, if you're a right-handed person, you hold your fork in your left hand and you use the knife with your right hand and you cut, because those who are right-handed would cut that way. Then they would switch the fork over to their right hand and take a bite. So I guess what I like to do, maybe people might think of it as cutting left-handed. I like to put the fork in my right hand and hold it, and you hold the knife in my left hand and cut. Then when I get the piece of meat cut, I don't have to transfer the fork to a different hand. That eliminate a whole step. And I just pick it up with the fork and eat it. It's a better technique. It's more efficient than the sighted technique. So we have got to, in what we do in the National Federation of the Blind, we have got to teach the world that it is okay to be blind, it's respectable, and that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and their dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back. I appreciate all of the hospitality that you've extended while we have been here. And I hope that as we leave this convention and Dana assumes the duties of the presidency and regains her marbles, I'm hoping that our life will continue to be worthwhile and that the opportunities become even more limitless for us, because we are at the threshold of a new era. And that new era will soon see us dine at the table of first-class citizenship. And we're getting there through the work that we're doing in the National Federation of the Blind. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Orlando. Thank you very much.